What do you think of the new abortion law in Texas? I want to talk about that. Abortion law in Texas. I want to talk about that, guys, and let me know what you think about all this. I should also say as a disclaimer, I appreciate I'm a man and I'm talking about abortion. So if there's any women watching this or about to watch it, I'm looking at things from my perspective, which is male, and I appreciate that even though I'm on your side, I'm kind of out of place talking about it. So bear that in mind. This is just my opinion as a man. Obviously, I kind of have a little more deference towards women's views on this. So let me start from the Supreme Court. Then I'm going to go down to the local level and then go back up to the Supreme Court, because this is really the only way that I can talk about this sensibly. As you know, the Supreme Court is split 5-4. You predictably have the Trumpians, Barrett, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and then you have not Trumpians but Alito and Thomas on one side. And while Barrett, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh have surprised us in the past, they've not towed the party line, so to speak. They've been rather behaved and upholding the Constitution. What's really disappointing about this one is it's a little bit more of an indirect attack on the Constitution. And on the other side of the argument, I'm much more sympathetic to the line that Roberts and Sotomayor have prominently stated. And I'm going to come back to that. Now let's go back to the local level. Let's talk about what the heartbeat law is. It's very fascinating what Republicans have done, the governor especially, because he has this law. It evades most of those important abortion questions that come up, because what he's done is not attack the woman who's getting an abortion. What he's done is they call it deputize. They deputize citizens to sue those who not get an abortion but aid and abet an abortion. Because if you were to sue civilly a woman for getting an abortion, that's immediately, even Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Barrett would agree, that's unconstitutional. But when they're able to deputize citizens to sue those who aid and abet, such as medical staffers, and I don't know how far you can go down with this. I don't know if it's considered aiding and abetting by driving someone to the abortion clinic. You know what I mean? So even family members, I imagine, could be held liable, and that's what's. Perhaps it's not as directly unconstitutional as suing a woman who got an abortion, but that's what's so sly and sneaky about this, is now it puts the government in a position of defense. So let me explain that for a moment. If it was the government that came down and it would have to be criminal, right? Not just civil. If they come down against the woman, they would be the plaintiff, the prosecutor, right? But by virtue of the fact that they're deputizing what are essentially bounty hunters to sue women in Texas, sue medical aiders and abettors, to challenge that, it puts them in a position of defense, putting the onus on the person making the case, right? Whereas before, if it came down from the state, they would be prosecutors. All of the onus would be on them. So it's very sneaky what they've done. And I'm going to mention some other things that's just absolutely fascinating about this, and terrifying actually, is they you don't even have to be a Texan to sue to be a so-called bounty hunter or deputy that sues private citizens, doctors and so on, for aiding and abetting an abortion. You can live in another state even and open up this suit. You don't have to prove that you've been injured by this abortion in any way or there's damages resulting from it. You know, you don't have to do any of that. You don't even have to know the person. So you're incentivizing this, you know, this what is essentially like a crusade against abortion practitioners or whatever you want to call them. Now, here's something else. So, okay, somebody, a bounty hunter, you know, to speak colloquially, sues a doctor who purportedly committed an abortion. He would be the defendant in that case. If he loses, he has to pay the $10,000, right? The fine that the person is suing him for. And he would also have to pay both his legal fees and, you know, the deputized citizens' legal fees. If the doctor loses, he doesn't have to pay the $10,000, but he still has to pay for his own legal fees. That's another thing that just blows me away about this. So I've kind of explained the background of what's going on here at the local level. Now let's go back up to the Supreme Court so you understand what Roberts and Sotomayor are saying. Roberts and Sotomayor have been very outspoken in saying that, you know, it might not be directly unconstitutional, you know, compared to if the state came down and actually criminalized women who had abortions. Yeah, it's not on that level, but there have been precedents that have already been set on this, you know, that women have this right. And so aiders and abettors to this lawful act, you know, it's immediately going to be shut down by those precedents. So it is unconstitutional. It might be a little more indirect, but it's incredibly unconstitutional. And we know what they're doing by enacting such a stupid policy as this. So I'm with Roberts and Sotomayor. Like the fact that, you know, Kavanaugh and Barrett and Gorsuch, and well, Thomas and Alito as well. The fact that, you know, they're saying, well, you know, it's not technically unconstitutional. Let's wait for this, you know, for people to oppose this and deal with it in due course. That is not responsible. You know that this is unconstitutional, so it should be up to the state, and this is what Roberts says, it should be up to the state to make their case, because and show how this somehow is consistent, first of all, with the Constitution, but the case law buttressing the Constitution as well, giving context for the Constitution. It's a real, I think it's going to be a real battle royale. I agree with what President Biden said, saying that this opens up a constitutional chaos, because now, by allowing this and not putting a stay on this piece of stupid legislation the way Roberts is insisting, now you open the door for other states to enact similar policies, which will overwhelm the courts, and it makes it up to people who've been severely damaged by this legislation to now restate their case and reassert what has already been constitutionally won in Roe v. Wade. And they have to go through, you know, all the channels, through the state level courts, you know, the county courts, on up to the state Supreme Courts, on up to the appellate courts, up to the federal courts, and then finally the Supreme Court, which can take, you know, upwards of a decade. And yeah, it creates constitutional chaos. So I'm very disappointed in Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, because while they were able to not show overt, you know, Trumpian bias, this is pretty extreme extremely biased. You know, this is an ideological position to take on something that you're there to support the Constitution, to defend the Constitution, not some half-baked Republican ideology. You know, these battles have been fought, and that's why the Chief Justice is right in saying that well, I've made my point, that, you know, they should have put a stay on this. The Supreme Court should have put a stay on this legislative stunt until they make a better case for it. So, tell me what you think of that. I know I've got some comments here. Awaken G. Most women don't know they're pregnant sometimes until 10 or 12 weeks. Exactly. Well, that's the other issue. Stop right there. Hold up. All right, peeps, so I'm just going to interrupt for a second right here. I want to show you something. You see that ratio? Look at that. 86%. 86 freaking percent of you watching are not subscribed. Why don't you like me? What are you even doing anyways? So the next time we see this little animation, what are we going to do? Damn straight. Okay, I hate to have to set you straight like that, but it's for your own good. I don't want to have this conversation again, you understand? Anyways, as I was saying. We haven't even addressed my views on abortion broadly. Yeah, 10 or 12 weeks is, first of all, the heartbeat law is 6 weeks, which is nuts. Because, you know, if people don't even know by 10 or 12 weeks, how much more so they don't know, they generally don't know they're pregnant in the 6 week period. Now, here's something interesting about the Canadian system and the American system. While there are certainly moral issues that I personally have with the way the Canadian laws are structured, the way the Charter frames it, I will give that it is at least very consistent. And the rule up here is very straightforward, and this is why we don't really have problems with abortion laws up here. They have said unequivocally that fetuses don't have rights. Now, morally, I do have a problem with that, and I think that we should do our best to protect viable pregnancies. I don't want abortion, this is something of a misnomer, I don't want abortion to be a form of contraception. It's a misnomer because you have already conceived if you're pregnant, but you know what I'm saying. I don't want it to be like in the Soviet Union, which I think the statistic came out in around 88 or 89, just before the wall fell, where abortions outnumbered that of live births. Okay, we don't want to go there, right? That's a problem. We don't want a society like that. On the other hand, so I am pro-life in that sense. Like the state should be involved, but at least from the Canadian side, it's consistent. You know, the woman's autonomy takes primacy, and I haven't looked at our abortion statistics, but I know that they're nowhere near like that of the Soviet Union. There must be other things. There must have been other things in the Soviet Union at play that caused that. So I'm not really concerned about Canada falling into that sort of a scenario. But it's at least very legally consistent, and you don't have these challenges that repose themselves all the time, such as what you have in the States. Because the States, the way they've said it unequivocally, fetuses have rights. And that's not, there's problems with that too, you know, because while I want to protect viable pregnancies, nobody knows, we can't draw that line as to when when a fetus is a person. You know, in the precedents, is defined as between 22 to 24 weeks, somewhere in there, because at the 21 week mark, that's when the central nervous system of the baby comes online and it starts to feel pain. Sorry, the central nervous system of the fetus. And it starts to feel pain, and pain is a very important part of what it is to be a human being. So now to dial that back to there being a heartbeat, I have huge problems with that because, as you said, awakened G, we don't, most women, I think it's 85 to 90% of women don't know they're pregnant before 6 weeks. It's, it's very common to naturally have a natural abortion prior to 6 weeks. It's a very volatile stage in pregnancy, so it could happen anyway. There's also another really good argument that, and it kind of leads more into the murder part of the argument. I don't think abortion can ever be considered a murder. I think that is wrong because it calls into question two things. Motive is central to it, and if you even look up the definition of what murder or manslaughter or any of those kind of charges, it's right in the definition. You're killing a person. Well, the question is this fetus a person? Does it have personhood? And that, depending on how you define personhood, that line is going to vary. Is it 21 weeks? Is it 24 weeks? One could argue, which I think is a brilliant argument, even though I have problems with it, that as long as that umbilical cord is attached to the baby, to the fetus, it is an extension of the woman's body. It's not a person. Again, I don't want to. Some people would think this is concentration camp talk. That you call it some Latin word like fetus, and now you've basically you're treating it like it's just something that's not life. I'm not saying it like that. I do want to protect. I'm sympathetic to the view that we should protect viable pregnancies, but there's a good case to be made that is still part of the woman's body until the umbilical cord is cut. So, because that's when the baby starts to do autonomous things. That's when it starts to breathe. That's when it starts to, open its eyes gradually and smile, and all those progressions that make them babies, people. So the murder argument in my mind doesn't apply. It's not, abortions are not murders. Now, a few things else I should say. First of all, am I getting behind here? Swim Sadie, no uterus, no opinion, in my honest opinion. Yes. Okay, so that was one of the other things I was going to address on abortion is I do think that men can have an opinion on this, but I'm much more sympathetic to your view, what you said. For far too long, it's been men who've made these decisions. And it opens up, this is very interesting. We're talking about how COVID potentially transgresses that line of interference that states can have on their citizenry. Well, it's very funny to me that it's generally the right wing right now during COVID that's insisting on my body, my choice, right? And yet they're the self-same ones who think women shouldn't have female reproductive rights. Try to square that circle. Now let's go even further. If you feel that you that the state does have some involvement, you view this as murder or something, the state should be involved, then you're also opening the door not only to this whole COVID mess that you're trying to extricate yourself from, but you're also opening the door to forced pregnancy, which is what happened in Romania. So, as you said, Swim Sadie, no uterus, no opinion. That's kind of how it's framed here in Canada. And you know what? It's a very consistent legal position. I like that up here. That it's, this isn't the party line debate that goes on ad infinitum, ad nauseum. You know, so that's also very interesting. And I should also say, as a disclaimer, I appreciate I'm a man and I'm talking about abortion. So if there's any women watching this or about to watch it, I might even chop this up in future videos and put this disclaimer at the beginning. I'm looking at things from my perspective, which is male, and I appreciate that even though I'm on your side, I'm kind of out of place talking about it. So bear that in mind. This is just my opinion as a man. Obviously, I kind of have a little more deference towards women's views on this. Awakened G, I couldn't do it myself, but I certainly understand a woman who is attacked. Yeah, and that brings up the whole rape question, right? Of what do we do with women who've been raped and have this child that, you don't know the background, the medical background of the person who did this to you. All kinds of issues. It also raises the question of therapeutic abortions, which can be very valid. As I said, I am sympathetic to the view that we should try to protect viable pregnancies, which that's not all pregnancies by any means, and that also leaves the door open to a woman opting for an abortion in that third trimester if there are other complications. If she has a twin and the other twin is compromised by the other fetus in some way, and their lives are there are some implications there, or if a baby has zero chances of being delivered alive, and the woman stands to sustain the life-threatening condition or else die. That's therapeutic abortions need to be on the table for those third trimester abortions. As I said, I don't want to get into a situation where abortion is used as contraception of some kind. I don't want it to be a situation where the woman is dilatory in making her decision. Dilatory isn't the right word, but basically postpones it, and now the baby could potentially feel pain, is well on its way to being a human being, and the convenient abortions in the third trimester, I can say as a general rule I disagree with. You should be able to make that determination earlier in the pregnancy. So that's how I feel about that. What you said there, Awakened G, about being attacked, rapes, and things like that. That's a good point. And also, like what the governor of Texas said, that we're going to crack down on rape. It's like, what society in the history ever of the world has been able to eliminate rape from their society? Like, get fucking real. Awaken G, the right wing have tapped in the 60s. My rights, my body. Yeah, exactly. And how hypocritical. That this is the hill you're going to die on when it comes to COVID. But oh no, not when it comes to women's rights. I know people are sensitive about this. By the way, I want to just say I have some friends, in the States and such, who they're very sympathetic to the pro-life side of the argument, and I get it. I do. I as I've said, I'm kind of pro-life in the sense that I want to preserve viable pregnancies, but they're also humble enough to say that it's not my choice, it's not my body, so I really don't have. I have to have some leeway here. That given different circumstances, I might have chosen an abortion in a different life. And I respect the hell out of that when people are able to come to that decision, even though they're very pro-life. So that's sort of how I feel. Hey everyone, I hope you liked this video. We put up some incredibly transformative content on this channel. If you want more like the one you just watched, click the suggested video on this screen. Make sure you subscribe, and to connect with me on my other platforms, my handles are linked below in the description, alright? Take care, peeps. Till next time.